Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we're getting started today. I am Sarah Neiswanger. I'm the Director of Industry Engagement for NGA. And today I'm joined by Georgia Ayler with the Senior Manager for Technical Services and Sustainability. She's part of the advocacy and technical team. So she'll be in the chat with us as well to answer any questions and also share some relevant links with you as we go through the presentation. Um, Before we get started, first a couple of caveats. We are trying something new with you today in that this is a split screen webinar with a PowerPoint presentation and video recording running simultaneously. So just a heads up and thank you in advance for just the chuckles if and when a technical snafu happens. But our fingers are crossed that things will go smoothly today. And as I alluded to, this presentation is a recording. So the Code Changes Shaping the Built Environment is a presentation that was given just earlier this month as part of the Blueprint for Collaboration program held at GlassBuild America in Orlando. And for those that may be unaware, Blueprint for Collaboration is our custom event that we're hosting alongside GlassBuild with educational content geared towards the design community. So we had some architects and specifiers in the audience. We offer a variety of educational sessions that are AIA accredited. And so if that applies to you today, this session is available for credit, and there will be a quiz posted at the end of the session that you can take to apply for credit. And also if you just need a certificate of attendance, we'd be glad to help you with that as well. So as we move forward, first, we want to let you know about the Building Envelope Contractors Conference, the BEC conference. It is just around the corner, which is hard to believe, March 1st to the 3rd. We're taking the event to Louisville, Kentucky for the first time, and we're very excited by that to be in the backdrop of the Bourbon Trail experiences. And also within walking distance of our venue at the Omni downtown is the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. So you can take home your own engraved bat if you'd like as well. So, and the conference just keeps getting better and better. The tabletop displays and the Take 5 presentations are already sold out. And we look forward to opening registration December 9th. So for now, mark your calendars and keep an eye on your inbox for when that will open in just 2 or 3 weeks from now. So we'll begin with the recording, and this is a 53-minute packed session of all of the implications and also insights related to what's going on in the building codes now and what will be coming up on the horizon quickly for you. Because the session is the full length of our time today, we will not be having a live Q&A. Again, Georgia is managing the chat and Q&A session, so she can help address some questions by chat, and also we can post our emails so we can follow up with you offline as needed. So with that, let's begin.
Taking care of the industry, and some of the items we're going to touch on is like what's most current, what we think of, and of course if you have questions, interrupt us and ask a question, please. So I'm going to go over what does NGA advocacy does for the industry. We're going to have Tom talk about natural lighting, classrooms, dorms, and apartments, energy efficiency where it comes to the I codes and all of the different standards, buy clean programs, embodied carbons, EPDs, and I'm going to have an action item for you all, so make sure you have your phones ready. Talk about glass recycling and end-of-life study, and then of course some protective glazing and school security, bird-friendly glazing, and things like that. So, then of course we're going to talk about some big wins on natural, on daylighting as well as bird-friendly. So what does NGA advocacy does for the industry? So, first of all, National Glass Association. We're not just here just for GlassBuild. We have a whole bunch of other different things that we do all the time. We have the glass conferences, and we are about 1,900 member companies, primary flat glass manufacturers, fabricators, glazing contractors, installers, and suppliers. So we actually have in our membership covered the entire supply chain. And I like our vision statement here is like we envision a future in which glass is the material of choice to enhance spaces where we live, play, learn, work, and heal. So this is how usually everybody else outside of the glass industry sees glass. They see pretty buildings, they see in their homes some really nice colors and things like that. This is all wonderful. This is how, for those who were here about an hour ago, you saw this diagram. This is how we see glass. So glass is being asked to do so much more than just protect us from the outside. So glass is there for us where it comes to security, hurricane, energy, flood, birds, bird-friendly, turtle-friendly, fire, acoustics, views, daylighting, recyclability, reusability, decorative, and of course safety. And then there's different types of glass. We have clear, tinted, laminated, vacuum. There's so many of course you all know all of this. But it's like for us on the advocacy team is like, how do we keep glass in buildings? Because we have a really amazing product, multifunctional at that too. So this is what NGA does. From the advocacy team, if there's a building code, a standard, certification body, association or organization, regulation or legislation that impacts or touches glass, we make sure we're trying to be involved. We make sure that we have a voice at the table, so that way we can ensure that we have a future for glass. We do so globally. So I'm personally involved in the international standards organization, the ISO codes for glass and glazing, ASTM. Tom Culp is heavily involved in a lot of the energy side of things as well. So a lot of stuff going on all over the time. And how do we do that? Here's our team. We have a team of 8. Of course, myself, you saw Karen Wiegert earlier, as well as Georgia Ayler. We have Amber Johnson, who's in our office. Of course, you have Tom Culp. Tom's remember as well a fire and structural consultant. And we have Nick Restatar, who's also, but they're not here today. And of course, some of you might have met Lakeisha Woods already. 221 hours in our expertise in the glass and glazing industry. So it's not just like, we're just here just for today and then we're gone off to something else. We've been in the industry for quite some time and we want to make sure that we protect the industry for quite some time. Defend and protect. One of the things many years ago, I kind of just asked the consultants, what do we want to get done in this industry? I feel like if we're always trying to make sure that we're defending window-to-wall ratio, it's always a big fight with everything else. Everybody else out there wants a part of that building. We're here to make sure glass stays in. The larger piece of glass that we have, the larger frame around it. The larger the spacers, the larger the sealants, the larger every single thing else that goes in it. So we try to make sure larger pieces of glass. So defending and promoting or protecting, we've stopped multiple attempts of reducing window-to-wall ratio. Not just the battle of the wall, but much more. Stop proposals that has misapplication of products that conflicts with other building requirements or cost prohibitive or impractical use of glass. And of course, we stop proposals that restrict compliance as well, performance paths, limits, and all of that. But one of the things that we're also doing on the positive side is that we promote daylighting. He's going to talk about some daylighting wins that we just now had about a week ago. So daylighting requirements in more spaces. We're trying to do more promotion on energy efficiency products. Increase compliance, flexibility for existing building retrofits, and of course, improve credits for shading, dynamic glazing, building integrated photovoltaics as well. All of our materials, it's a member. So it's also not just GlassBuild. NGA has lots of committees. Every single member has one voice, the equal voice. So it's a consensus process. We build a lot of different technical documents for the entire industry. We have standards, we have building practices, we have manuals. All of these are free for members to download. There's a QR code if anybody would like to do it. I don't know if Culp is in your way or not, but so you can go to our website. It's glass.org/store, and you're able to get all of our information for free. We also have design guides. One of the things that we've done and we've prided ourselves with is that within the glass and glazing industry, our members work on solutions for the rest of the industry, not just members, for the entire industry. One of the ones that we'll talk about is our best practices for bird-friendly glazing design. This is something in which industry worked on. We sent it off to all of the different experts at the Bird for bird friendly, and now we're also have it at the code level as well as at a standards level. So one of the things that we do, we build it in-house, have industry use it, and then we make it into an international standard. Those are also free. And then we have about 90 technical documents that talks about anything and everything. This one's up there is about dynamic glazing, and I think construction site protection on things like that. So we also have AIA presentations that's on there. If you are an AIA provider, we have the presentation with the speaker notes. We give it to you. You can take it as your own, because when you're speaking with architects, one of the things that they don't necessarily want you pushing their own or your own company material. They would like something that's neutral. These are presentations that you can use. We also have AIA credits for architectural record. We have an academy there that has many different presentations that's there if architects need their things as well. And so then we also do a lot of advocacy. Glass and Glazing Advocacy Days, where we go to Capitol Hill. We talk about what can we do legislatively to help with glass. How do we keep glass in buildings legislatively? Whether that be energy efficiency, where it comes to credits for different types of newer products, where it comes to protective glazing or any type of school security or anything like that. That's also something that we have worked on. On our website, lots of different webinars. This is actually going to be one of the webinars that's going to be on there in about a month or so. But we have quite a bit of them every third Thursday of every month. We either have a residential trends that we talk about, quench your thirst for knowledge, kind of like the technical talks, and of course the technical know-how on things like that. Follow us, LinkedIn or Facebook or anything else, but there's also on this QR code, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter so that we can be abreast of all of the things that we have going on. There's always so much where it comes to standards, where it comes to codes, where it comes to anything that's impacting the industry. We try to make sure there's a lot of information out there. I'll turn it over to Tom to talk about some of our wins now.
All right. So Urmilla kind of gave a high-level view of like what the association's doing for the membership and the industry. Now we're going to dive into some of the specifics. Some of the specific activities have been happening over the last year, months, even last week. And so the next time we'll talk about it is natural light in classrooms, dorms, and residence, and apartments. So what are the code requirements for natural light? So in the building code, the IBC, the International Building Code, which is used by all the states in the country, as well as a number of, Canada and a number of other places, there's a provision there that requires habitable spaces to provide either natural lighting, windows, or artificial lighting. But that's an either or, not necessarily both, which is a little weird because in most cases, you're going to have both. You need lighting, nighttime, wintertime, but you still want to have windows in there too. But some were using this as a loophole. It doesn't say you have to have both. And so there was a loophole. You may have read about this in a lot of the trade press. There were people trying to build windowless dorms in Michigan, Texas, California. Munger Hall was one that was talked about in California. And I mean, think about that. That's just horrible. I mean, to have your kid like trying to live, learn, work, grow as an adult in a space like that. Yet they were trying to do it. And so this is despite a lot of clear research. A partner of ours is Lisa Heschong. She's an academic that works on the importance of daylighting and view. She's done a bunch of seminal research showing that when you have access to light and view, that students do better. They learn faster, they are healthier, they're more productive, better, so many clear benefits that we also highlighted in the last talk. So what we tried to do is through GICC, Glazing Industry Code Committee, that's an arm of NGA that addresses the codes, together with the Aluminum Extruders Council, we partnered and submitted a proposal that said, no, we got to stop this loophole. This is bad practice. Let's put in a requirement that makes it very clear in the code that you must provide both natural light and artificial light, electrical lighting, in classrooms was our focus, as this part of this concept that there's a basic right to light, is the way Lisa talks about it and others talk about it. And then pleasantly surprised, but we started working together with AIA, as well as Professor Miro, who's in architecture at UT Austin. They put in similar proposals doing the same thing for living and sleeping spaces and group R occupancies, which is dorms, as well as apartments and hotels. And so, the pictures speak 1,000 words. This is a real picture from Professor Miro of a dorm in UT Austin. And it's like, can you imagine? And the quote says a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. The loneliness and claustrophobia caused by the 4 solid walls is unbearable. And I can imagine that. That's the student that was living in that room. And it's like, that's horrible. I have 2 kids, sophomores in college right now. I can't imagine, they're already under enough stress. To live in a space like that, horrible. So on the flip side, we know, and you can just visually see, this is elementary school classroom, but it would be true of other classrooms, all the way, through higher education as well as dorm rooms. There is clearly a benefit there. So that's the big announcement is, and hopefully you already saw this on LinkedIn, we tried to make a big deal out of it, spread the word. We had a big win, a very big win for healthy buildings and students. So together, NGA, AEC, AIA, and Professor Miro, we successfully passed 2 proposals at the ICC Code Committee hearings on October 24th, so just like a week and a half ago, to require natural light in schools, specifically in classrooms, dormitories, and apartments. So that's a big win. We're not done yet. You can see the votes there. They're not unanimous. This was a committee vote. The next step is there'll be a hearing in the spring before all the code officials, and we have to defend it there. So it's not a done deal, but it's a really big step forward. We would like to think it's a logical step, but it's kind of crazy we even had to put this forward, but it will stop those horrible trends and buildings going on. So that's a big win for the association, so we want to celebrate our wins when we can. Next topic, I'm going to keep talking here. I'm going to jump into the other area I cover, which is energy efficiency. So this is like things like IECC, ASHRAE 90.1, Energy Star, NFRC. We'll talk about what's going on in the world of energy efficiency. So I've been asked a lot, like, what's kind of your prediction? We're living in a little bit of a chaotic world right now. What's happening? We have a different administration that views things very different than the prior administration. What does that mean? And so I talked about this at BEC a little bit for those who were there, but I keep being asked about this, so I want to repeat a little bit. Kind of what I see happening is you're going to see a difference in local versus national action. At the national level, we know, and we've seen already, there's going to be kind of a slower but continual things are not stopping completely, despite the current shutdown. But at the national level, we're going to see slow but continued small incremental changes in the model energy codes, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But then, kind of the new part is, I think we're going to see this slowdown at the national level cause an increase in regional activity, and we saw this last time in the 2016 to 2020 range, and I think we're going to see the same thing here. And this is the one place I'm not political, NGA is not political, but this is one place where we will see a political split. We'll probably see less activity in red states, more in blue states, but also blues at the local level in cities, in blue cities in red states. Atlanta being an example, Austin, Dallas, places like that. So I'll give you some examples of what we see happening out there. So from a high level, what's this mean? It creates both opportunities and threats. We have to watch for tax on window area in any of our codes. We always do that. But also, some of these local activities are creating new opportunities for high performance products. Vacuum glazing is, becoming a more mature. It's been there for a long time, but now it's expanding, becoming a more mature technology out there, more widespread. Triple glazing, forced surface low E, advanced spacers, advanced frames. There are going to be, we're seeing new opportunities created for those products. So what do I mean about that national level, slow, steady progression? This is an example. This is ASHRAE 90.1, the main energy standard for covering commercial buildings as well as residential buildings that are 4-story and higher. This is a chart on the left that shows kind of the progression, the energy consumption of buildings built to the standard over time. So you want that to go down. And you can see this is a long time frame. This is going back to the 70s. Going back to that start time to where we are today, the energy efficiency of buildings built to the standard have been cut by more than half. That's a lot. Not many other industries can say they've done that much, but it's been done at slow, steady pace, continual. And that's happened over multiple administrations, regardless of politics. This is why I say, yes, we are all trapped in the news cycle this way and that way. I think we're going to keep seeing at the high level kind of this slow, steady progression at the high level. Same thing is true on the windows specifically. The chart on the right is just an example of U factors for commercial windows in Chicago Zone 5. And you see like over a 44% reduction in U factor over the last 20 years. But we've been able to show that it's cost effective and realistic and practical. Right now, you know, there's many people on the floor here showing products that meet these products that, you know, maybe back in 2004, they'd say, oh, freak out a little bit. Can we do that? Yes, we can do it. We are doing it. So we'll continue, my prediction will continue to see that at a high level. And kind of, you know, that steady progression is continuing. My world and Urmilla's world, we're already working on the future. So we're working on the 2025 standard for ASHRAE 90.1, which has not been published yet, and the 2027 IECC, International Energy Conservation Code, but they're already done. The criteria are essentially already done. We worked with the committees to come up with criteria it's a comprehensive change that's coming. I don't have the numbers for you, but contact me. I'm happy to provide them to you if you want to know what's coming. But to make sure they're cost-effective, practical, number one, there's no reduction in window area. We're seeing small incremental changes, like 3 to 10% in U factor. Okay, not a big deal. Solar heat gain is pretty much staying the same because it's already been optimized. Higher in the north, lower in the south, with one exception where it is going a little bit lower to the 0.23 solar heat gain in zone 0 through 2. That's the pretty far south, up to about Dallas is about the highest, the most north. But we'll see more warm edge spacers, more thermally broken frames, more gas fill in all zones. And then in the northern zones, you're going to start to see more forced surface low E, high performance thermal breaks. And then far, far north, zone 7, 8, that's like northern Minnesota up into Alaska, triple glazing. But the main point is we have those products. We can do that. It's all good. A lot of words, I'll just make it very simple. There's a lot of rhetoric in the news about renewable energy. Is it going away? Is it advancing? Energy codes, it's still there. It's increasing, which for us includes glass and PV and building integrated PV, BIPV. They've maintained and actually are increasing their renewable energy requirements that are embedded in some of the newer energy codes. So renewable energy from a PV standpoint will continue to increase. There's also for designers, so the designers in the room, those who want to be more proactive and use higher performance products, you get credit for it. So both IECC and 90.1 do have ways to get credit for higher performance envelopes, triple glazing, VIG, extra renewable energy, tighter air leakage, as well as there are some new aspects in there allowing you to take credit for automated shading or dynamic glazing. So let me know if you want to know details about any of that. On the residential side, that's mainly dominated by the IECC, not ASHRAE. There we kind of see the same thing. If you just look in the north, going from 2021 to 2024, we pretty much have the 2027 numbers finalized, we think. It's not done yet, but there's been a strong consensus around it. It's just small steps. You can see a 3.0 to a 2.8 to a 2.7 in the northern zones. In the southern zones, on this, you know, not small changes in U factor, no big deal, but there is a change to from a 0.25 to a 2.3 solar heat gain in the far south, but nothing earth-shattering. So more warm edge spacers, inert gas fill, improved frames, forced surface low E in the north. In the far south, you're going to see increased use of triple silver low E's and kind of some of the newer triple silvers that are out there that give a little more solar control. So, but really nothing earth-shattering. What about Energy Star? So Energy Star program version 7 is for residential windows, doors, and skylights, 3 stories and less, so homes and apartments. It's been in effect now for 2 years, and the numbers are there if you want, but you've probably already heard it's really quite aggressive, especially in the northern zone. And so the hope is that it's really going to start to push triple glazing, surface coatings, things like that. But there's been a lot of news. The current administration proposed eliminating Energy Star, and not just the Windows program, but the whole thing. Everything from refrigerators to thermostats to anything covered by Energy Star. They're trying to get rid of the whole program, but the news is no. There was big pushback when that was announced. There was big pushback from industry, from building owners, builders, manufacturers. They said, whoa, 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 we actually like this program. It's a public-private type thing. It's good for marketing products. Home builders use it to market Energy Star homes. Energy Star Buildings program is used for tax credits and benchmarking ordinances on the commercial side. And so the overall program, they realized, okay, maybe that was a little too aggressive, so they've backed off. And because of that pushback, both the House and the Senate Appropriations Committees have put in a specific line item into their draft budgets to fully fund Energy Star. Now, of course, we got a shutdown. So what's that mean? We don't know. So if no budget is approved, or if they just do a continuing resolution, it may not be canceled, but they may also not spend any money on it. So it could just sit there. It's called impoundment, which there's a big debate whether that's illegal or not. But it's looking like it won't be canceled, so it is continuing like normal for now. And utility programs are still looking to Energy Star as a basis for incentives, like Wisconsin is looking at that right now. So Energy Star is still there, but it has created a lot of confusion in the marketplace. I just wanted to briefly mention PAWS. PAWS is a Partnership for Advanced Window Solutions. It's another public-private cooperation partnership, kind of like Energy Star is. This is specifically for Windows. It's DOE, national labs, utilities, and then industry. So I'm there along with some of our members, like kind of representing the glass industry on how to promote, kind of voluntarily promote the higher next level of performance, high performance windows. Both residential and commercial. This is an event that we were just at in Minneapolis, focused with high performance builders, home builders, to try and get them to look at triple glazing, VIG. We're also looking at minimum housing ordinances, which is basically kind of the flip side of the market, like older existing homes. What's your bare minimum? Like, there's a lot of single pane windows out there. How do you get people to replace it? Some of these cities that are listed there have ordinances that at time of sale, or if it or broken window, you have to bring it up to like at least a minimally compliant window. And so it's a way to kind of address the existing building market as well. Let me know if you have questions about those. So that's kind of all stuff happening at the high national level. Despite a lot of rhetoric, things are just kind of moving along in a good direction. But I mentioned there's going to, there is a retraction from the federal government level, and that leads to some of the states and cities at the local level deciding, well, all right, fine, I'm going to do something on my own. So I have a couple examples of regional activities. One is Colorado. So Colorado passed a law a little while ago that addresses all residential windows, doors, and skylights sold in the state or offered for sale in the state must meet Energy Star version 7. That's a big step, that you must, now it's putting the onus on the manufacturers, not the person occupying the home. You violate a building code, it's the building occupant that is technically at fault. Of course, they're going to point fingers at whoever built the home or the architect or whoever, but technically the responsibility is on the building owner. Something like this, the responsibility is on the person selling the product, whoever's selling that window. And so it really raises the level. And there was some question. Energy Star version 7 in Colorado is quite aggressive. It will really push triple glazing, but there was some pushback from about affordability and cost, and this confusion about Energy Star fed into it, and they backed off a little bit. So they backed off to the 2024 IECC instead of Energy Star. But it's nothing, crazy, but it's at least it's still an improvement. It's a 0.30 U factor for windows and doors. No solar heat gain requirement in Colorado. That's the northern zone. And it's a compromise that gets more people on board. Colorado's unique with the altitude. So there were some discussion of trying to, what do we do about the higher altitudes? Do we give an additional allowance and so right now they just kind of are staying out of that game where it's a 3.0 U factor for the entire state. But just wanted to note that there are more and more manufacturers doing high altitude argon. It used to be said you can't do a gas fill, you can't do argon at high altitudes. You can. And there are companies here that are showing you how to do it, and more companies are doing that. There are different ways, pre-equalization of the IG unit, it seems to be one of the ways. There's people here you can talk to and learn more about that. Also in Colorado, they have a model low energy and carbon code. It starts July of next year. Basically, it's the modern energy code, but then adds on stuff about extra solar. So glass going into PV, as well as electric vehicles, electrification, stuff that really doesn't involve us. But that is an example where Colorado said, all right, we're not going to wait on the federal government. We're going to move a little faster on our own. Illinois. So Illinois just recently updated their Illinois stretch code. This is used for state-funded buildings, but local cities can adopt it as well. And so that could be a small proactive town, or it could be Chicago. We don't know yet, we'll see. But it's based on the IECC, the most recent version of IECC plus some. That says final approval expected September 30th. They did do that. Sorry, I forgot to update that. It has been approved. So for commercial windows, it's a 2.8 U factor fix, 3.2 operable. So that is a notch beyond like ASHRAE 90.1. So it is more advanced, but it's still achievable and practical. So it's going to push some of those higher performance technologies. Residential thing, they're looking at like kind of a 2.7 U factor. So again, very reasonable, can be done. It's just pushing the higher performance products. Boston, going up there. So they have the new net zero carbon zoning policy. This started in July of this year, so it's in place now. All new building projects now have to look at carbon as well as energy. So they have to report embodied carbon, EPDs. Urmilla is going to talk a little bit about that. Large projects have to do whole building life assessment. Plus, they have to meet a very aggressive energy code, the most aggressive energy code in the country. So there's a lot going on there that's way beyond what is happening at the national or federal level with other buildings. So Boston's probably one of the examples of like really regional action going beyond the national level. And then this is not Boston, this is ASHRAE 90.1. I did want to notice that's kind of the national standard, but to try and help cities like Boston, they said, well, let's try and put a little uniformity around this. So they created a net zero energy building voluntary appendix. So it's a voluntary appendix that for a city like Boston, if they want to do it, then they can just say, okay, I'm going to do it this way. And so it's a notch above the main energy code. Uses a lot more increased on-site renewable energy. One thing we looked at, make sure they didn't attack window area. They didn't, so we made sure of that. So it's high performance target. It's going to be hard to do, but it's not necessarily an attack on windows. Now all those were examples of certain states or locations kind of jumping ahead of what's happening at the federal or national level, want to be more aggressive. It can also work the other way. And you might be surprised that I have California up there. But California is taking a pause. So what they're doing, they have a pretty good, strong energy code already, but this cycle that's coming up for the next couple of years that they'll be working on, they said, you know what, we're not going to really make big changes. They're really just doing small tweaks. We're going to do one small tweak in Windows. That's really no big deal. And then probably the bigger news is they have this in response, if you're in the last talk about where Karen spoke about wildfires, after the Palisades fire that just decimated a lot of residential homes in California, they put a pause on what they have are known as reach codes. They said, okay, no residential communities can implement these REACH codes for the next 6 years. And that's because they want to speed development and rebuilding of some of those residential areas. Residential only, but it's kind of interesting. California's taken, not a step back, but just taken a pause is the way I would describe it. Now a step back would be Missouri. Missouri introduced bills to roll the energy codes backwards. And this has never happened before. This is very rare. From 2018 back to the 2009 code. And that's like, what? And you know, we're going to go back to double pane clear glass, no low E. You know, it's silly. You know, I think it's something that looks easy on paper, but in reality, why would we do that? And so it did, and ultimately they came to their senses. The bill died, it did not go anywhere. But it does, I just wanted to use that as an example that this sentiment of regional activity can go both directions. So there is some sentiment out there, and you know. Last thing before I hand it back to Urmilla, NFRC. NFRC is the gold standard for calculating U factor, SHGC, VT, and all the standards, energy codes reference it. It says you have to use those numbers. It doesn't say you have to do the full label, but you have to have U, SHGC, and VT numbers calculated in accordance with NFRC procedures by an independent lab. Residential products, the easiest way to do that is get the label. And so that everyone's familiar with that. You see that everywhere on residential windows. You see the NFRC label, and that is the gold standard. For commercial products, NFRC numbers are used quite regularly, but for product, and they're used for product information, specifications, code compliance. But the full use of the NFRC program, which is either a label or a label certificate, has been used less because of speed, concerns about speed, cost, flexibility. So they know that, so they've been working on that on both the residential and commercial side. On the residential side, they have a new program called LEAF. It's a horrible acronym, linear, blah, 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 blah. I can't even remember. But it's a way to give a little more flexibility in the residential marketing program, like where a residential manufacturer, if they want to swap out the type of glass and very quickly recalculate their label numbers, they can do that. Commercial side, they've been working, staff has been working with industry for the last 6+ years to revamp their program to make it more flexible. There are two paths here for architects in the room who tend to work on more customized projects, especially large projects. You can do a custom product path where you just have one lab certify every product on your building. And then you get one certificate for the whole building. So that, you know, that's something that architects working on kind of a more comprehensive big project may be interested in. Or there's a product path where, like more from a manufacturer perspective, they can combine this frame, but very quickly combine it with different glazing options and then spit out in real time a new certificate for that product with the rating at standard size or at actual size. That's a big debate. You can ask me about it if you want. I mean, your U factor at the real size is different than the NFRC size. Ask me if you want more information about that. So they've been working on that, and they're done. So the staff has been working on the implementation. It is now in place. So products, all new product certifications have to start using that program now. For manufacturers in the room, if you're a spacer or glass manufacturer with products in the NFRC database, don't worry about it. It's already been transferred over to the new program. For framing manufacturers, you have 6 months to do it without any retesting, which is money. So, and I just talked to Kevin Lauder at NFRC yesterday. He said most have already done it. If you haven't, they will help you do it. But go to their website, you can find out new information on the new commercial program at NFRC, which will hopefully be a lot more flexible.
So a question for some of you. How many of you were here last year and kind of heard us give an update? There's a couple, that's good. But I like that there's new people, so that's why I added the next couple slides. So last year, we were all excited. A year ago, we were so excited because NGA was selected for an EPA grant to help with industry on embodied carbon, on all of these things and all of that. So NGA was the only glass representative that's on there. And so we had high hopes. We had 4 different projects that we were going to do with this EPA funding. One of it was for the primary flat glass LCI data aggregation. We're going to work on an EPD generator tool for processed glass, EPD development, assistance for glass fabricators, because that's something in which we know that glass fabricators, sometimes they're being asked for it, sometimes they're not. It's very expensive to get, but nobody knows necessarily like who's going to ask and when, but it takes a lot of time. And then of course we had an end-of-life LCA data collection on architectural glass recycling. This was going to be something, it's like, what happens after the glass comes out of a building? What do we do with that? And then we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. So last year, really excited, had all of this money. We were gonna go rock the world and change the glass and glazing industry. Then January 20th happened. And so President Trump went ahead and had an executive order to pause disbursements of funds. We were a week late on getting our funding. Our EPA person was really, really trying to get us up going and all of these things, but then we couldn't get all of the information there to where we were fully funded. So then by spring of 2025, didn't hear anything yet, but our exact number was on one of the Doge lists, that it was one of the ones that was going to be cut. And then finally, July of 2025 is when the One Big Beautiful Bill Act officially canceled all unobligated funds and the low embodied carbon construction materials program in both for EPA as well as GSA, including our funding. So what do we do with those 4 projects that we're all excited about? Still got to get them done, right? So just as this is the status of where we are with the product category rules, this is the flat glass product category rule. Back in the September 30th, expired. So this is the ones in which no more flat glass EPDs can be worked on currently right now because there isn't an PCR that is now updated. Flat glass EPD average. This is something in which the NGA had worked on with the forming committee. This was expired back in December 20th of 2024. This is something in which they were not going to be updating. However, part of the funding, we were going to have some data for that. This is also expired. Processed glass PCR. This is all the fabricated products. This is all of the laminating, the insulating, the etched glass, everything, any process that happens to a glass. This PCR has been expired since June of 2024. And then this is the one that's actually still available. It's Fenestration Assemblies PCR. And this is formerly the Windows PCR. This one here is active until 2028. So one of the questions that we're working on right now and trying to figure out is like, how do we move forward knowing that here are all of our documents for embodied carbon. We have states now that are now picking up more of, they're asking for BioClean, they're asking for numbers, they're asking for EPDs, they're asking for embodied carbon numbers. What do we do as an industry? Here's all of the, Tom kind of talk through some of these already about who's asking for these. As architects are asking for these as well. So you have architects, you have specifiers, you have all the general contractors. So many of them are looking for last minute requests for them to bid jobs. For some of the BioClean states, you need to have an EPD. This is not something you can do last minute. This takes months to do. And so it's not something in which we can just happen to go on. And of course, with the version 5 of LEED, and I think Tom talked a little bit about this as well, this is also there. And in order to get a full, is it a full point? Yeah, level 1 points are providing company and product specific EPDs. Higher level 2 points are awarded for products showing 20% reduction in the embodied carbon compared to a baseline. So it needs to be a baseline, which is your average, and then show 20% above that to get different points. So as an industry, there's some information that we need to get out there. There's some information we need from you. And so one of the things that we're working with is with True North Collective. True North Collective is our consultants that are working on asking the industry, what do you want? What do we need to do? How do we move forward knowing that we don't have the EPA funding? How do we move forward now with, do we move forward with the EPD generator? Do we move forward with EPDs or LCI data? Is all of this necessary? Do we need to do both PCR updates or not? So please, if you can, if you are being asked for environmental product declarations, if you're being asked anything about PCRs or anything, please take the survey. It is a live survey that just kind of gives us some feedback because we are an industry organization, an association of member companies. And so, yes, and so we also have, thank you, Kristen Morehouse from True North here. She's in the audience. Ask her questions, or allow her to ask you questions, so that way we can have some really good data on how to move forward with this. And this one we're going to have Tom talk about. This is number 4 on that wish list with the EPA funding.
So, yeah, so this is tied in, like EPDs, traditional, you can do EPDs in many, many different ways, but most traditional is what they call cradle to gate. It's like everything involved with you making your product and then shipping it out to your customer. And they stop there. But there's also an end part. You know, what about at the end of life? You know, what happens to your product after it's used at the end of its life? So we had part of the CPA grant, and then, but it was, we decided to go ahead and do it anyways. Is we're gonna look at this because recycling and glass recycling is very important, becoming more important in our industry. So recycling rates are increasing. We know that from some of our members. You're seeing demand for recycled cullet increasing. Why? Now, we have to be careful. There's different levels of recycling. You know, where the end use, where does it go? Anywhere from granite countertop to fiberglass insulation to bottles to architectural glass. It can be used in that case, but with very careful quality standards. So there's many outlets, but when it is used in that case, it reduces, it's less energy to remelt that material. So then you like lower your associated energy use and carbon use affiliated with making new glass. And it also results in longer furnace life. So there's a lot of reasons to recycle. NGA has a resource, the World of Glass map, that you can go to the website's right there. You can go there. That Georgia and Urmilla have spoken about and shown. You can look, see where fabricators are, where float plants are, and now you can see where recycling facilities are in the U.S. and elsewhere as well. And so it's an interesting resource. Then we wanted to also, like, part of this looking at end of life and circularity, what happens at the end. You know, recycling is one word, but there's really like there's different ways of doing it, different uses. How do you recover it off a real project? So we have a project together between NGA and the Aluminum Extruders Council in a real life deconstruction, like taking down a building, looking at how much aluminum, how much glass is recovered, where does it go, what's the process. And so it's similar to studies been done in Europe, but now we want to repeat that in the US. So basically it's that everything else beyond your traditional cradle to gate EPD. And we have a building. So this is our first building. It's actually a parking garage, but it's a big one with a lot of glass and aluminum and other materials on there. This is in Rochester, Minnesota, so some of you may be able to guess who owns that, but it's you know, they're tearing it down. We're working together with Infinite Recycled Technologies, who's here somewhere. I'm not sure where. Hey, Stanley's right there. All right. So thank you to Stanley, and we're working with Sophie Pennetier, who many of you may know. She's a Dina. You got to do the French pronunciation, but she's our third-party LCA expert working on this, and it's underway. So I happen to live only an hour away from there, so I've been able to sneak over and take pictures. And so it's underway. They're taking pretty much all the glasses off. So we're going to be tracking that, you know, the recovery and where lessons learned. And then next will be looking at aluminum and some of the other materials. So Sophie will be providing a report in the spring, most likely at BEC or GFAB, I guess. I'm not sure now.
Yeah.
But we'll know more in the spring, and we're also looking at some other future sites to look at different ways that, you know, glass can be removed and recovered and all that. So a big thank you to Infinite as well as Dean for doing this, and go check out their booth. You guys have a booth?
2050.
2050,
So
there you go.
at booth 2050, for any of the exhibitors that are here, once you break down, Infinite will be recycling the glass that's in the booth. This is also one of their things that they're trying to do. So there's Stanley holding up the thing. So we're really excited that the glass that's being used here will actually be recycled. It's not going to go into the landfill. Thank you, Infinite.
Glass.
Okay.
Last section.
Last section, protective glazing. Some of you were probably here for the last session, but just real fast on the code aspect of school security. So our one-pager for legislation is that school security, windows and doors respond first. This is something in which we're very serious about. It's like if an attacker cannot get in, then it buys the time for the occupants inside of the school or in the home or the office or anything like that. So this is something in which we're trying to do legislatively to change, and so asking for federal legislation for funding appropriations for schools, so that way we can change out the doors, windows at the very area. Thank you for your support. And so we're trying to make sure that we're trying to get something in legislation, because a couple of weeks ago at the codes, it did not go so well. So the average length of an active shooter is 8 minutes. The shortest is 90 seconds. If they cannot get into the building, it's less. And so response time for first responders average about 3 minutes. So this is something in which we can do something about. The glass and glazing industry, we can harden a building. We can help buy time for an attacker to get inside of a building. One of the things that frustrates me, and I know many of you as well, is that there's no building codes for school security. There's no security or forced entry or any type of like that in the codes itself. GICC with NGA had put together a proposal for school security for the building codes. However, that did not work out. But what was really hopeful and helpful is that some of the building officials who were there, as well as consultants, are saying, do not give up on this. This is something that needs to happen. And some of the advice we got was like, well, how about you go ahead and try to see if this is a life safety issue instead of now introducing security to the building codes. So the consultants and the staff, and of course with industry, will be working towards what that looks like for the next edition of the codes. One of the things that we're putting in, especially in our codes as well as legislation, is to recommend ASTM F3561, which is the standard test method for forced entry resistance of systems after a simulated active shooter attack. And it serves the entire industry. It's not just a glass test, it's not just a frame test, it's not just the hardware, it's every single thing. And I have some videos here. This is a door that has already been shot at, and then you have now the impactor. That door did not open up. Here's your window. So it buys time before that assailant is able to get into that building or that school. It allows people the opportunity to hide and go into what they need to protect themselves inside of a school or an office building. Some of the solutions we kind of talked a little bit about before is like security glazing can slow down an attacker. It's allow personnel to see the impending danger when you have the views at the front end of a building, to see what's happening, to be able to start the lockdown procedures and all of that. It can be designed with force entry or bullet resistance or anything like that. It looks just like regular glass. It's just like your regular everything that's there right now. No one's going to know what's going on with there. So, and provide passive protection even during power outages. Sometimes there are things where it's like, hey, power outage happened, doors are automatically open. This is something that still happens. Switching to bird friendly, again, we kind of talked a little bit about that in the last session as well, but this is just to let you know on the code side and also on the standard side. As industry, we did work on a bird friendly glazing design guide. There's lots of requirements in there. And I mentioned already that we have a database that's on the members only side that kind of shows every single state, every area that has, like some cities have like lights out program or different things. So you have different areas that have different types of legislation or their requirements on bird friendly. So all of that's on there. Different places require different things, different materials as well. So here's the legislation that kind of helps. I'm gonna have Tom talk through about this big win at ASHRAE.
Yeah, so there's a lot of variation. So far, the bird-friendly requirements have been really implemented scattershot ordinances. You know, San Francisco's different than Chicago, different than New York. And so to try and promote a little more uniformity, we decided, well, let's take what we recommend from our design guide that NGA's members developed and put that in the green code. So the green code is there were two that were merged, so it goes under two names. There's ASHRAE 189.1, and then that becomes the International Green Construction Code. And so we put in a proposal that, based on the NGA design guide, specified where it's required. So it's basically, you define that, but it's basically 90% of the vertical fenestration, glass spandrel, and skylights below 100 feet. But it also has language in there talking about glazed corners, skywalks, glass railings, vegetated roofs, things like that. Roof patios, things like that. And then where it's required, what's required, and this is a prescriptive standard, so it has language that includes all the different technologies: opaque, translucent, etched, as well as UV markers. And then it's kind of essentially the 2x2 rule, if you know that, which is markers spaced every 2 inches. But it has flexibility and wording in there so that there's a certain new way that you can do dots, lines, random patterns that a certain sphere or circle can fit in, and so it's meant to be flexible but provide that protection for birds. And so then the good news, if you go ahead and click to the next one, is success. So they were very welcoming of this. The committee supported this unanimously through 2 public reviews. It's now being processed for publication, probably at the end of this month. So it will be published as a separate addendum, and then that will automatically be incorporated into the next full book of ASHRAE 189 and the 2027 Green Construction Code. So it's another example of taking advocacy, or something our members wanted us to do. We bring it to them, we worked with the committees, and now it's going to be real life, where now cities and states can adopt this around the country.
And then most importantly, it's not chaotic from different state to different state. And so here's something that's harmonized, so that way, as there are different projects, you have everything that's just one. And one of the last things I want to mention is that the design guide, because there hasn't been a standard at ASTM, do you use the field test, or is it the tunnel test? There has been that debate for at least a good 12 years. At ASTM, one of the things that our members had decided, it's like, hey, we have this document, can we make a practice, an ASTM International Practice Guide at ASTM, so now we have a standard that's out there to now use. So this is a new task group in which we're working on at ASTM EO 651 task group. So I think that's what we have, Tom.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us throughout that presentation. I see some chatter in the Q&A and chat, so we'll continue to receive those questions and mark them so that we can follow up with you offline. As shown on your screen, there's a QR code that will take you to the quiz that you can fill out. I think Georgia will put that link in the chat as well. You can earn 1 AILU HSW credit. You can also request a certificate of completion for attending today. And just a reminder, we will post the full recording with handouts of this webinar on glass.org/webinars by about midday tomorrow. And in the meantime, I hope we'll see some of you again on December 11th for our next and final Thirsty Thursday for the year on apprenticeship programs. So in the meantime, have a great afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.